Hello, my name is Julie and it was just my birthday. So I am now 23. It's weird. I've passed the point where birthdays are super important, and I have acquired a bunch of books since December, so I decided now that I have birthday gifts as well, now would be the time to do a fairly big book haul. Mostly big in the sense that I have 5 packages to open, one of which I don't even know what is inside. I am going to show you all the books that I ordered for myself, as well as the books that I got as gifts for my birthday. First, I'll go through all the books that I got for myself. I pre-ordered An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. You saw me read this in a previous vlog. This is a companion to A Dowry of Blood, which is one of my favorite books of last year. That is a reimagining of Dracula, and this is a reimagining of Carmilla. It's set in the 1950s. Our main character is going to this boarding school for girls where she's writing poetry, and she gets obsessed with this student who is a competitor of hers, Carmilla, and Carmilla is in turn obsessed with their poetry professor. I really enjoyed this book. I'm glad I bought this. I do think it deserves the title of companion. The 2 books are very much soul sisters. They do have a little bit of overlap in one character, but that doesn't really impact the books, so you could read them in either order. I do slightly prefer Dowry of Blood, but this one was still great. Now we have the first of my unboxings to do. Let's see if you can guess it while I'm opening this box. So this author I used to consider one of, if not my favorite author. They wrote various series that I was a really big fan of, especially when I was a teenager. And while her books are some of the most popular around right now, I think that she's kind of dropped off in quality. I have heard mixed things about her brand new release that I got pre-ordered and everything so I could get it cheaper, and I still didn't open the box till now because of this video. But that is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas. Look at how big this guy is. It is a urban fantasy where our main character witnesses something super traumatic and years later is asked to help out the authorities when the case opens back up. And I thought that the first book was fantastic. It had a great romance, the mystery plot was great, the fantasy world plot was great, but book 2 I thought was extremely lacking. It felt like 900 pages of nothing, and I was just really disappointed in it. I know that this book has been getting middling reviews, but I am going to finish out the series anyway. I was planning on reading it at about now in the year, but I have been so freaking tired of fantasy romance that if I want to even give it a shot, I know that I have to wait until I'm in the mood for a fantasy romance again. Now I have 3 different subscription boxes to open. Well, it's actually 2 of the same box, but I have been subscribed to the first box that I'm going to open, Aardvark, for a year, and I initially got it because your first book is $5, but then you had to continue to the next month, and I didn't know that. So I have only gotten a couple books from them. I got Practice Makes Perfect and Chain Gang All-Stars, and I accidentally just kept forgetting to skip because I would see the books at the beginning of the month and then not be excited about it and forget that I needed to skip later. So I have spent a couple of months trying to figure out how to use all those credits, and I have finally closed all my credits, and I am not going to be continuing it with this subscription service. I think I just haven't found enough books that I am actually interested in from them. But I did find a couple books that I was before I closed it out. So maybe in the future I'll start up with them again, but I'd like to be a little bit more financially responsible. The first book that I got from them was in February, and that is a love song for Ricky Wilde. Let's look at this. This is the bookmark for February. This is the book. Tia Williams wrote 7 Days in June, which is one of my favorite sort of literary romances. I've been told that this involves time travel, which is one of my favorite things. This is about Ricky, who is living in New York City, doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, gets a new apartment, ends up that she gets transported to 1920s in the Harlem Renaissance. I think that this one's gonna be right up my alley. I think this was March. I got a couple of books from Book of the Month. I've had a Book of the Month for several years now, and I never get books consistently, but I always get a few a year at least. They have a long backlog of books that they still have available, so it's easier to get rid of credits because I can go through my TBR. But I was trying to cut down on some of my credits. I have, I think, 4 books that I have here. The first of them is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. I've heard such fantastic things about this one, and it is in my 12-12-12 challenge for this year. This is a gothic fantasy novel where our main character is married off and he promises that he will never pry into her past, but her past seems to be cropping up. Her aunt is sick and her childhood best friend has just come in, so I don't know a whole lot about it and I don't want to know a whole lot about it. Then I got one of the add-ons for the month, which was Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. So this was turned into a movie recently. It was at the Oscars, it got a lot of awards and everything, and my dad is a big nonfiction reader. I am interested in this story as well, so I decided to get it, but I got it with my dad in mind, so I will be passing this off to him to read. But this is, like it says on the cover, about the Asagi murders. This was a group of murders that happened on a Native American reservation, and this is accounting how the investigation went down and how it led to the rise of the FBI. So I've been told that this book is fantastic, that the movie's fantastic. I need to get on it, but I'm gonna give it to my dad first. Then I picked up one that I've been meaning to get to for a while, and that is Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I've read Beartown, which is one of my favorites, and I read A Man Called Ove last year, and really love them both. And this is one of his most recent releases about an eclectic group of people who are forced together because they are in a bank robbery. So I've heard that this one is just as emotionally impactful as this other one's. Excited. And then, because I am a best friend of Book of the Month, I get to pick one of the best of the year picks for free. The choices were None of This Is True, Shark Heart, Yours Truly, Wayward, and The Wishing Game, and I ended up picking Shark Heart. This has been described as weird literary fiction, which is something that I always try to pick up and was most interesting to me out of these. But this is about a couple where the husband is slowly turning into a shark and the wife is having to deal with it. So it is it's like a metaphor for losing somebody, and I've heard nothing but great things. Also, I really like this cover and this color scheme. That's all my Book of the Month books. And now we have my last Aardvark box, at least for now, unless I decide to go back to them. But I got 3 books to empty out all of my credits. These are the May bookmarks card that has the book on it, and it has a little online challenge for people, and the 3 books I ended up getting. So the one that was a backlog book that I decided to get was A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland. It is a fairy tale retelling. I believe the story is called The Selkie Wife, but it is historical fantasy that is also queer. It's a debut, and I've heard people talking about this one. I don't think I've heard people actually reading it. Our main character, Jean, is a midwife, and I believe she is falling in love with the wife, who is kind of being neglected by her husband. And I think that this has a really good chance of being a 5-star. Then I picked 2 different books from the May picks. Just happened to be one book that I was already getting, and that was Evocation by S.T. Gibson, who wrote Education of Malice and Diary of Blood. So this is a new series from her. This is about our main character, who is a psychic in a world where that's very frowned upon. His family has been cursed, and he is having to make some sort of deal with the devil, and the only person who can help him is his ex-boyfriend. But this is the beginning of a proper series from her, so I'm very excited. I'm a little bit sad that I didn't get like a super special edition that had a lot of like foiling on it, but the good thing about book boxes is that I did get this for a fraction of the price of what a regular hardcover would be. I get all of these with shipping to be $18 from Aardvark, and $15 from Book of the Month. The last book that I ended up getting is one that came highly recommended to me from one of my coworkers, and that is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. So as of filming this, I just finished Dead Silence from the same author literally yesterday and thought it was fantastic. That's a sci-fi horror, and this is the same. So I'm just gonna read the synopsis. Psychologist Dr. Ophelia Bray has dedicated her life to the study of the prevention of Eckhart-Reiser syndrome, the most famous case of which resulted in the brutal murders of 29 people. It's personal to her. When she's assigned to a small exploration crew who recently suffered the tragic death of a colleague, she wants to help. But as they begin to establish residency on an abandoned planet, it becomes clear that the crew is hiding something. They are more interested in investigating the eerie ancient planet and unraveling the mystery behind the previous colonizers' hasty departure than opening up to her. That is, until their pilot is discovered gruesomely murdered. I think this one's getting slightly lower reviews than Dead Silence, but my friend did love this one a lot, so I am excited to read this, and I am glad that I closed out my subscriptions so I don't have to think about subscriptions anymore. And the last box that I have here is from Tor. So I requested a bunch of 2024 ARCs, but I don't know which ones they actually sent me. So it is a surprise to me what I am getting. Oh, okay. The first one is the Fireborn Blade by Charlotte Bond. I am so surprised that they actually gave this to me because I did request this in May and the book came out in May. So this is a novella that I believe is the beginning of a series, but this is about a female knight in a world where there aren't a lot of female knights, so she has a lot of people against her, and she has been tasked with getting the Fireborn Blade from a dragon. So dragon, women, love it. Oh my god, I think I got everything I asked for. This is insane. I love Tor. Tor is my favorite publisher. Have I said that before? I also got The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Djeli Clark. I've recently read 2 books from him, and this is about an assassin's guild. Our main character, Aveen, is an assassin for the Matron of Assassins, which it says, those sworn to the Matron of Assassins, resurrected, deadly, wiped of their memories, have only 3 unbreakable vows. First, the contract must be just. That's above Aveen's pay grade. Second, even the most powerful assassin may only kill the contracted. Aveen's a professional. She's never missed her mark. The third and the simplest, once you accept a job, you must carry it out. And if you stray, a final death would be a mercy. When the Festival of the Clockwork King turns the city upside down, Aveen's newest mission brings her face to face with the past she isn't supposed to remember and a vow she can't forget. That sounds amazing. Then I got Rake's Fall by Vajra Chandra Sekhara, which I discovered this from one of Kayla's new books that sound cool video. I've heard nobody talking about this, but it sounded so awesome. It's a groundbreaking standalone science fiction epic about 2 souls bound together from here until the end of time. Some stories take more than one lifetime to tell. There are wrongs that echo through the ages, friendships that outpace the claws of death, loves that leave their mark in civilization, and promises that nothing can break. This is one such story. So this is about 2 souls that keep meeting each other throughout the years, and I think that this is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited. Then the 2 bigger books I got were Masquerade by O. Sengoyomi. This is inspired by the myth of Persephone, but it's set in 15th century West Africa. It follows a woman who is abducted and she's trying to find her own power, and I think that this is going to be freaking fan. I am so excited for all of these books. And the last one I got, this is The Sky on Fire by Jess Lyons, who wrote The Ruin of Kings, which I have seen around but haven't actually read. But this is about dragons. Anarad lives only for survival, forging her own way through the harsh jungles of the deep with her Titan Drake by her side. Even when an adventuring party saves her from capture by a local warlord, she is eager to return to her solitary life. But this is no ordinary rescue. It's Anarad's past catching up with her. These cunning misfits and their frustratingly appealing dragon rider ringleader intend to spirit her way to the dragon-ruled sky cities where they need her help to steal the dragon's hoard. There's only one problem. The hoard in question belongs to the current regent, Neveranimus, and she wants Anarad dead. So it includes dragons. It's about found family. There's a heist. I am all over this. So most of these come out in the summer. So as I said, this one, it comes out in May. This one said it came out in April. That's a lie. This one comes out in June, and these 2 come out in July. So that means I need to get reading. Before I show you the books that I got for my family for my birthday, I have a couple of cute things, bookish related things that they also got me. One is these neat and novel sponges, which they are just sponges that look like books. So it's Pride and Prejudice, Moby Dish, and The Sponge Also Rises, which I thought was funny. And then I got a candle collection that are classic novels. So there's Pride and Prejudice, Little Women, and Wuthering Heights, and they all smell very good. They're very strong. Just opening the box, you can smell them. And then the last thing I have is that my dad made a book for my family that is Tales and Trips. This is from our Disney trips. So this is a collection that he wrote about our different experiences at Disney and the lessons that we learned. We are a Disney family. We do really like going to Disney World. As an engineer, I love Disney because they're so well organized. But we also love the movies and everything. So this was a passion project of his that absolutely blew me away. So I'm very excited to get around to reading what he wrote. Now let's talk about the books that I got for my actual birthday. Hi, I am at my secondary location to bring you the rest of my birthday book haul. My boyfriend absolutely adores blind dates with a book. He loves that concept. Every single time we go to a bookstore, he has to check out if they have them. Usually blind date with a book are books that people haven't been able to sell, so they're trying to repackage it in a fun way so people buy it. And this one was actually a National Book Award finalist in like 99 or something like that. It was a Oprah's book club pick in 2000, and it's been made into a movie. I'll put in the blind date with a book description right here, but it sounded interesting enough, and it was clearly like won awards and everything. It's just an older book. So it ended up being House of Sand and Fog. This is about a woman who lost her husband and then lost possession of the house. She's a former alcoholic and drug user, and she has been trying to get the house back. She also has a lover who is a married man and a cop. He's trying to get the house back for her, but at the same time, there is an Iranian colonel at the time when the Shah was overthrown who's trying to win back his family's dignity by getting this house. So this is literary fiction from the 90s, just something I hadn't heard of, so. And then my cousin went to Portugal and went to a very famous bookstore. It actually inspired some of the places in Harry Potter, and she picked up a couple things for me. She didn't know that this was the last book in a trilogy when she got it, but she got me The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, and this is a trilogy about Thomas Cromwell, which that is a period of history that I'm interested in. So now that I have this, I guess I have to go find the first book. I am planning on beginning this trilogy, but it's gonna be a long time before I can physically get to this one. Yeah, the library is Livraria Lello. It's famous enough that it has specific editions of classics that are unique to it, and she got me this copy of 1984. With all these strange illustrations on it. I read 1984 in school like most Americans, but this is a modern classic dystopian novel about a totalitarian government. There are only like 3 world states, and they're constantly changing which 2 are fighting with the other one. And our main character has been just a cog in the system. At the beginning of this, he is starting to think things against the state. And this is a modern classic that I do quite like, so it's awesome to have another very cool copy of it. And then my family got me a couple of books off of my list. The first of them is not a novel, but it is Giuseppe's Italian Bakes. If you watch Bake Off, he was the winner of the second most recent season, and he was my favorite. He's also an aerospace engineer like I am, which is super cool. Jurgen was also great. Jurgen and him were my favorites, but I've been following him on Instagram and wanted to make more of his recipes, and they're supposed to be, for the most part, like on the simpler side. I want to get more into baking again because reading has always been my #1 hobby, but baking has been like #2 for most of my life. And now that I have to cook for myself, that's kind of taken up the space of baking, so I hope I can get to a couple of the bakes in here. And then we have the couple of novels they got me. First, we have The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman, and this is signed. There it is. This is the 4th book in the Thursday Murder Club series. I don't know how many books are actually planned for this, but I just finished the 3rd one like last month or something, and I really enjoy it. It is like a step up from a cozy mystery where it does have a little bit of a thriller element, because some of our main characters are tied to like MI6, international spy things, but overall it has a very comfy, funny tone. We have 4 septuagenarians at a retirement community, and they come together every Thursday to look at old cold cases and try to solve them. And in the very first book, a murder happens right outside their retirement community. And in this one, an old friend of theirs has been killed. I haven't heard very many reviews of this one yet, so I'm excited to get into another one. I love Richard Osman on Taskmaster and all of the British TV he does, so always a fan of these. Then I got the sequel to a book that I loved last year, and that is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. So this is the sequel to The Diviners. I feel like this doesn't pull up on camera very well. I bought The Diviners when it came out. I DNF'd it like 50 pages in, and then didn't pick it up for years and years, and I read it for Friendathon for a reading challenge. My friend Katie picked a book off of my like backlist TBR, and I finally read it. I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by the author, and it was fantastic. I loved the blend of fantasy and horror and historical fiction. This is a paranormal horror-y fantasy that takes place in 1920s New York. So we have our main character is like a flapper girl, but she also has the ability to, when she touches an object, she can see its past. Her uncle, who she's staying with, is the owner of this like occult museum, and there are some occult killings going on. He is hired to help investigate, and she goes along and can bring extra stuff into it. But I was just surprised how well done the horror in this was. It did feel a little bit Stephen King in the way that the horror was presented. While I am sad that I can't continue listening, I do not think the audiobooks that are available to me with the sequels are narrated by her. I don't know if she ever recorded the sequels. There are audiobooks available for the sequels, but I do not believe that the author did them, so I'm sad that that changed, but I'm hoping that I will enjoy the sequels in print as much as I enjoyed the first book in audio. Then I got The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book in a sequel series to the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, which was one of my favorite fantasy series for a long time. I was a huge V.E. Schwab fan, especially when I was in high school, and I've liked some of the stuff that she's done recently. I am always very hesitant about sequel series. I have lost a lot of faith in some of the authors lately who are just like, oh, let's continue working in the same world that I've worked on for a long time instead of actually making something new. And V.E. Schwab has been very good about making a lot of different series. So returning to this world with like one character in common, entirely different characters otherwise, I am a little nervous, but I have heard pretty good things. The setup for the first series is that there are 4 parallel worlds and they all have one place that are all in the same location, and they're all called London, but each of them has a different relationship to magic. One of them has died. That is Black London. The world no longer exists because magic blew it up, essentially. There's White London, where magic is power. It's a very violent place where people are constantly vying for power. There's Red London, where there is an abundance of magic and is kind of used freely. And then there is Grey London, which is our London that we know. But in Georgian times, I believe it's during King George III and IV's rule that this series takes place. Hopefully this goes as well for me as the previous books did. And the last book I have to show you all is Light from Uncommon Stars by Reika Aoki. This is a science fiction book that I have been seeing everywhere. It's been called like weird sci-fi. There is a character who has sold her soul to the devil to be a great violin player, and to get her soul back, she has to get 7 other violinists to do the same thing. There's a transgender character who is also a violin player and a runaway. The main character is like, oh great, I can get her to be the last person that I need to escape my deal with the devil. And then the 2 of them end up meeting this interstellar space captain. But I've heard it is fantastic. It was a finalist for the Hugo Award. Very excited to have this very pretty book in my possession. And that's it for my birthday book haul. Let me know what books you've gotten recently. Have you read any of the books that I just got, and what did you think? I have a bunch of good books to review for you for May. I had a fairly good reading month. If you'd like to watch that, please hit the subscribe button so you know when I make new videos. If you'd like to follow me anywhere, my Goodreads, my Etsy, my Instagram, all of that is in the singular link down below. And as always, I will see you in the next one.